So now this is the point where it's technically recording
Right. Oh,
and
yeah.
pushing to Google. So I need to see us. I'll mute that, and then I can monitor the chat room as well. So now this is the point where there we go. All right. So now we are ready. A little after 1 o'clock Eastern, but I am super excited as everybody starts to filter in to have Brittney Castro joining us today on a special episode of the Advisor of Tomorrow podcast live. And the reason it's bonus is when I reached out to you, Brittney, and you said yes, you would come on. I had like the next 6 episodes lined up. I'm like, there's no way I want to wait till December to hop on and talk with Brittney. So I'm just going to do an extra episode and everybody can find time and find their way in. So thank you very much for joining us. If by any chance anybody out there doesn't know Brittney, Brittney is the founder of Financially Wise, an RIA out in California, out in LA. We were just talking about it. But in addition to that, I think you're one of the first advisors really to embrace building a personal brand, to leverage your story, to build your business. And because you were an early adopter, you have a lot of other things after your name, partnerships with Chase and Entrepreneur and, Investment News 40 under 40 this year. I see the plaque in the background. So a lot of accolades that have come with doing all of this. So I've been excited just because I've watched you do these things, and I would be lying if my desire to do content and do some of this was not inspired by what I saw you do. So that's why it's exciting for me to have you on. So with that long, lengthy intro, Brittney, thank you for joining us, and maybe give a little bit more of your background to everybody if they don't know who you are quite yet.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Justin, for having me first and foremost. Such a complimentary welcome to your show. I'll do any bonus you want.
There we go.
You're so generous. Okay. Yeah, I'm happy that, you were inspired and are doing great stuff yourself. I think I was super impressed when I heard of you through one of the partnerships I have with Altruist. And it was kind of cool to put my head up this year in 2020 and kind of reassess the landscape, because quite frankly, I'm just one of these people that I had a vision and I just put my head down and did it. So I don't really keep up so much, like especially the last 5 years, I didn't really keep up so much with what the industry was doing or who the players are. And it was really refreshing when this year specifically, I started to reassess and see people like you who just understood it and are doing great stuff yourself. And I think that was actually very inspiring for me too, to see, a lot of the things that maybe I was like this lone ranger, and there was a handful of us, but doing years ago, and everyone thought I was crazy. Now you can see it's becoming more and more the norm. Still not really the norm, but at least better than it was 7-8 years ago, for sure.
And more people are asking about it. I'm sure you get hit up with calls and requests from advisors to talk about how do you do this, or I want to learn. And more advisors are interested in doing it, which I think is exciting. I think that the reason that I have the Advisor Tomorrow, one of the things I want to do is I want to encourage more advisors to do it, because the way I look at it is there are more than enough people for us all to help. We all have our specializations, our niches that we work with. And why not personalize our profession? I think part of one of the reasons that finance is so untrusted is years and years of these corporate brands that have been about making as much money as possible, shareholder returns, and greed. So that's what people think of when they think of finance. I would love to see when people think of finance, where they think about the individual advisors that are out there helping. So all of these personal brands working together to present this great image of people who care about their clients and want to do good work. I think that's a good thing. So I think we need more people on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, wherever it might be, telling their story, because the more good advisors that are found, the better our profession looks. And that's better for all of us. One of the things, as you were talking about how you kind of put your head down and you go, one of the things at the tail end of this outline is to talk about your little blip in Gary Vee's book. And the cool thing is what you just said is exactly the little passage I'm going to read later on, kind of about your approach. So it's cool to see that. And I think this is a big part of the brand is authenticity. What you said, however many years ago the book came out, is what you just said now. And it's what you've done. So that when people see and hear you, when they meet you, it's all the same and it's authentic and people appreciate that. So, well, for today's conversation, I want to keep dialing down on brand and learn more about how you came to realize the power of this, how you did it, and learn from that. But then the last thing I want to end with is, and really why I was excited about this, is kind of experimenting as we go about trying different platforms, trying different mediums. I think a lot of advisors are afraid. And from my perspective, that doesn't scare you. You've done different platforms, you've turned them off, you've tried different things. You're on TikTok. I don't know if you're still doing it, but you were doing TikTok. So all these different things, like you're quick to adopt to these. And I want to encourage people to step outside their comfort zone and experiment. So let's just start at the very beginning. At what point, that's all right. At what point did you realize there's something unique about yourself, the way you view finance and the way you want to help people, that you wanted to put yourself out there?
Yeah, that was probably the uniqueness I think I identified way back when I was still at Ameriprise Financial. So my first firm out of college, I was there almost 5 years, and that was where I got a lot of training. And it was like this time where they would pour a lot of marketing dollars into training their young advisors about marketing, running a financial planning practice, actually how to do financial planning, all of it. So I was very grateful for that. Like, it's just kind of, you look back at the journey and say, well, thank God I had that, because most firms don't do that kind of training anymore for young, fresh out of college advisors.
Mm-hmm.
But it was at Ameriprise that I realized, I just had these bigger ideas of how I wanted to work with clients. And I obviously saw my uniqueness of being a young woman in finance. And I would just talk to a lot of people. And I thought, wow, clients more than anything just need somebody to talk to them in a real way and just listen to their emotions or main concerns about the plan or whatever money strategy we were telling them to do, not show them the 90-page financial plan and report of their investment portfolio. Like, so many of the clients were just like, am I going to be okay? And so I started to pick up on this, and my business brain just realized, oh, there's this opportunity for me, one, to kind of niche myself in a community. At that time was specifically women. Since then, I feel like I've tried to expand just that beyond just women, because we help men and women and everybody needs help. But I think it's important, the uniqueness that you talk about, because when I actually, funny story, when I first said, oh, I'm going to become a financial planner and focus on the women niche, that was right before I left Ameriprise and went to LPL. A lot of the people, advisors, said, oh, that's so silly, basically. And why would you do that? And I thought, well, that's weird. Why don't they understand the importance of niche marketing or building a brand? And even though I had those naysayers, I just thought, well, I don't know, I'm going to do it, because for me, it would be a more authentic way to work. And then I could talk to people or the ideal clients that I wanted to in a way that, like you said, was more authentic to me, instead of just chasing this market that baby boomers, because they had the money, it was like a disconnect. Like, I was like, well, naturally, yeah, I can talk to these individuals, but these are the people that I would be like, hanging out with or circling with when I'm networking or going out. So why wouldn't I just get this group of people instead? So anyway, I did have to, just kind of trust my own instincts on that. But I think that's the important part. Like, when you really decide, you just keep going, and then eventually you're going to make it work.
Right. And I think that's the difference between the old guard and the new guard, of kind of where the business opportunities are and who we can help and how we can help them. The reason that the young professionals, there's the old model, there's no way to make money. They don't have enough assets. You can't charge, which is huge opportunity. So the fact that you're able to identify that and then pursue it is pretty forward thinking. Obviously, everything else that you do. I think there's one thing that I want to highlight before we keep going down this conversation of branding and content and all the fun stuff, is that you're talking about the 90-page plans and helping clients out. Like, I think sometimes when we think about marketing and branding ourselves and growing our business through that way, we lose sight on being a financial advisor first. All of the great content that you do would mean nothing. You wouldn't have the partnerships and the growth that you've had if you weren't doing good work for your clients. And I think sometimes we get caught up in all this exciting stuff, and maybe from the surface level, it gets lost that, we are doing good work for our clients, which is the other reason that this content works, because you can't have a successful growth pattern if you're constantly losing clients on the back end. So we're not doing this to tread water. So the short end of that is, as we as we focus on these things, we talk about it, the advisors watching and listening, don't forget that you've got to be a good advisor first for any of this stuff to work. This is all I really wanted to drop in there.
I like that you said that too, because especially in 2020, I think we're seeing the weeding out of anybody who wasn't authentic, especially in the social media space. I think maybe 7 years ago was the wild, wild west. Anybody could be putting a YouTube, getting money from brands, have fake followers, but that's definitely not the way it is anymore. Corporations are a lot more strategic with their marketing dollars. If they are going to hire somebody to work with on like a speaker, spokesperson level, they really want that authenticity and the credentials, and like you said, actually doing good work are most important if you want to stay long term. And I think you're 100% accurate. I remember I had one of my social media managers, not my current one, but a few years ago, she was like, I can't believe the deals you get from brands, because if you look at your following, it's not like you have millions, but she was working with all these influencers, so she was saying, Brittney, you have to realize, like, this is really cool what you're able to do in the financial space. And it gave me that perspective of, well, I'm authentic. Like, I actually am a CFP, like I'm an expert. So even though I might not have millions of followers, for a brand who's creating content and wants to help somebody, they look at me as very valuable, which is great for me. But it gave me that like realization about, creating content and being legit with it.
And that just, don't focus on the numbers, quality over quantity. And at the end of the day, I don't know how many advisors are setting out to create content to ultimately have partnerships. Like, maybe that's the end goal for some people, but if the goal is to create content, build a brand to grow your business, then you don't really need, you don't need Joe Rogan numbers podcast. You just need a loyal listenership that's going to continue to follow you and eventually reach out to work with you. So whether you have 100, how much would advisors pay to have a room, I think seminar days, have a room full of 100 people that are captive and want to hear what you have to say on a regular basis? People would pay a lot of money for that. So don't lose sight on what you're trying to do with your content and what you're trying to build. Now, if the goal is to do partnerships, then maybe you have to think differently. But I think most advisors just want to do this to put their voice out there and grow their business. So quality over quantity is very important. So at LPL, you realized the opportunity. How did you get started? What, how did you put yourself out there? How did you test the waters? What was your beginning of what you've built?
And at LPL, I was very clear, I'm going to use this as like a stepping stone bridge, and then eventually have my own RIA, because at Ameriprise, we learned that like that, you can have equity in your practice. So I knew there was that model that existed. And I kind of saw this independent channel of the LPL giving me like the bridge, because I wasn't fully ready to go from Ameriprise to RIA. Like I had to learn, like, how do you even set up your corporate docs, like all of the back end stuff. And I just needed to build my client base and brand again. So that was in like 10, I first joined LPL. So I had a plan that I would just start building out this brand, Financially Wise Women, and be almost like the next Susie Orman, financial expert. And I literally did a combination of everything. I went to every networking group in LA, pitched myself as speakers. I could teach workshops if they were interested. I started the YouTube channel. I started all social channels, I think, at that time. And I've said this many times, but I literally would just call the compliance office and say, here's why you need to approve these tweets, because I was also educating them at the same time. Or then when I launched the YouTube, I had to get all the scripts pre-approved, and then I would literally just have to communicate. It's me teaching a workshop. All I'm doing is just putting it in a video format that's going to live on this platform called YouTube. But, I was determined. So I worked through so many obstacles. And then eventually I felt like I got enough traction. I rebuilt my book of business to then just fully go RIA. So I had more freedom. It was just like a very day by day. And I understand all the frustrations advisors have, which is like, oh, it's so annoying, getting all the social media approved with compliance, or they're restricting, there's restrictions I had too when I was still at LPL. So I think I just started to realize what would work for me long term. And I was so not willing to give up on this vision, that I just would push through any like little day-to-day annoying challenges that would come up with the social media and brand development.
I couldn't do scripts for YouTube. Like not one of my videos is scripted. Like
Oh, really?
but I know what I want to say. I might have some bullet points, but then I can't do scripted. I just go off the top of my head. So like I couldn't tell compliance, here's the script. Like I'll give you a script, but that's not what I'm going to say. It's going to be something different when I get done.
Yeah, it's good training. You know, it's funny because I'm the same way. Like I could just put up a video and talk, but I still oftentimes will create the script for, especially with some of the brands I work with, you know, so they can run
Right.
compliance, and then I know like here are the main talking points, so they know I'm not. But yeah, you do just kind of learn what you can and cannot say in the compliant realm, and yeah, you stay with it. But yeah, it's a different game now than before for sure.
There's still some so thinking back, is there anything you would have done differently? Like you pushed through, you persevered, you kind of weren't going to be told no, but is there anything that you did that you look back and said, that was a waste of time, or I shouldn't have done? Or do you think what you did is exactly what you should have done?
You know, it's hard to say like which thing, because there's so many things as a business owner or entrepreneur that you do that who really knows, you know, like of course, mistakes, waste of time, waste of money. But also it was a learning for me. So I had to go through those things. Like maybe in the beginning I would have, I mean, I could look and just tell you it wouldn't have been so I don't even know, like blogs, maybe I wouldn't have done so much because like written format was just annoying to me. And it wasn't just something I really care for. And eventually I just switched to doing all videos. And but you know, I had to do that to learn. So it's hard to really say like this one specific thing, but I will say I've made a ton of mistakes. I've wasted, you know, money. I've launched things that didn't work. But it all has led me here, and that's really what you are as an entrepreneur. You test things and you pivot all the time and course correct, and then you think this one, like I remember, I think when I first launched my online money class, I thought it was going to be one of those $1 million course sales, you know, like all the online marketers are teaching. And then I realized, well, I don't do any Facebook ads. Like I'm not doing any of the other strategies these people are doing to get the $1 million sales, because like no one ever tells you that they spend $500,000 on ads to get a million, you know, like all that stuff they don't tell you in their course. So I mean, I think I would have just maybe had more realistic expectations with some of the things I was launching, that yeah, eventually I would get the traction that I was looking for, but it wasn't going to be in that like 1 month launch period that I thought. And then I learned, you know, well, that's, you know, maybe works for that person, but that didn't work for me. And I have this combination of online, offline, financial expert. So I'm not just a straight online marketer, and I have to be cool with that. Like, I think it was a lot of it is just learning what I am and what I'm not, and being okay with it. Like, I'm not an online marketer. Okay, yeah, I have online stuff, but I'll probably never be that person. And that's okay, because I have these other things that actually work really well for me, and I enjoy those.
So I'll add a couple things that I learned, because this is supposed to be more conversation. Like you
Yeah.
lead the conversation, but so one of the things I would probably do different, and it ended up working out for me, but I think sometimes, like to your point, what works for some people doesn't work for everybody. I try all the platforms, all the mediums real quick. So blog, video, podcast, like I went into those very, very quickly. And I think I became good enough at all of them, but not great at any one of them. And I think that when you're first getting started, you think of an advisor who wants to kind of follow the blueprint that you've laid out, rather than try to do multiple ones. Like find the one channel that your audience is going to spend the most time on, and what's the one form of communication you're most comfortable with, and get started there and perfect that before you start trying to do a bunch of other ones. I think that I tried to do too much. And then the other thing that I did is, again, it ended up working, and I wasn't as early as you were, but I still think I was kind of early to doing this. I just created with absolutely no strategy, no thought behind it. It was just create, put it out there. And if it's good, good things will happen. I'm enjoying it. I'm having fun. I'm seeing traction, but there wasn't a lot of intent behind the things that I've done. And now fast forward 5 years, now my firm has a clear vision of who we work with. So there are some things I'm doing more intentionally that are meant to drive people to the firm with certain pieces of content. Like Thomas, who hired and joined me, we have a podcast he's launching that's just for millennials. But the goal is to try to speak to an audience that would want to work with us as advisors. I'm going to launch another podcast that's all money and purpose focused, because that's what we're talking about as a firm. And the whole goal there is audience for the firm. All About Your Benjamins was just a catch all. I just did it all. It was fun. So I would tell people that if you want to speed your runway up or shorten that runway to getting that lift off, is to try to be a little bit more intentional with the content you're creating. Like, why am I doing this? What purpose does it serve? Not just let me create, unless you're really okay with like just doing it and figuring it out later, which I was. But I think a lot of people, I'm sure you get asked, well, how soon will I see results, or what's my ROI? Like, if you're thinking that way, then you need to be more intentional with the way you create your content. If you're okay just trusting the process, then go create and then just put it all out there, see what sticks, and then start adjusting to kind of do more of what's sticking, and then you find your way.
I love that you said that, because I think it is a combination of both. Like, as an entrepreneur, you have to enjoy the process, right? You have to enjoy creating these things. And that's so true. Like, you have to almost like go a little crazy, create all these different things, and then you get wiser and you kind of see some traction and see, okay, what really is working, and then you put more intent and focus on those areas. But I think it is a combo. Like, in the beginning, I think it's really healthy to just be like, create it all and have fun, and then see what you like and see what's bringing you the traction of clients or whatever it is that you're looking to get from the creation process, and then refine it and get wiser and more strategic.
So how important is it to be an early adopter of the app, the apps or the softwares or whatever's out there? Because you've been ahead of the game, you've tried them all, and you've moved on to the next one as everybody's just getting comfortable with it. So how important is it for you to try to be ahead of the game, or is it that's just part of your natural creative process?
I think it's the latter, like part of my natural creative process. And to be honest, now I've been talking about money for 15 years. So it's fun for me. Like, this is, like you said, there's a fun part for me of the creation. Why do I like marketing? Because I think that's where I get to create and have this ability to try new things and test new things and talk about the same thing I've been talking about for 15 years in a new way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it keeps it fun and exciting for me too. So I think with trying the new platforms, I mean, you just kind of have to assess as an advisor, where are you and your firm? What is it, like you said, what are the goals? I mean, if you're kind of established, then no, you don't need to be going and trying TikTok or Reel and launching a podcast every now and then. But sometimes, like personalities, that will just keep you a little bit more engaged and inspired to do it, even if you don't really necessarily need more clients from those outlets. So for me, I think it's more fun than anything. And I try and one, just so I kind of stay hip and cool and understand what's in the marketplace. And then two, especially now, just because I work with brands creating content, like I just want to be able to say, yeah, I've tried TikTok, or yeah, I've done the Instagram Reel, and I understand here's how it works, or kind of like sometimes what I'll do, especially with those two recent ones this year, is I did it so brands see that I'm using it, and then they keep thinking of me as this valuable player that they want, because I'm staying, with whatever trends are happening. Now, do I think TikTok is amazing? Not really. Like, I don't think, and I quite frankly might delete my account soon, but I think it was fun for me to test it and see. And then, some of the brands picked up and wanted me to do it. And, it just kind of keeps you on the forefront. Reels, I think Instagram Reels is, cool, better. But, it's kind of like the testing period.
So how do you evaluate, or what are the metrics you look for to determine this is worth keeping, or this is worth pivoting and just trying it? And I scratch that itch and it's not really moving the needle. Kind of, what's the metric that you look for to stay with something?
Do I like it? Number one. Selfishly. No, it's real though, because I mean, yeah, we have to do a lot of things that we don't necessarily love or like, but honestly, I'm not going to do things if I'm just like really not into it, or if I see TikTok, or let's just say any of these platforms is really not going to be affecting, what I'm trying to do with my other business goals. So one, I think a lot of it is personal. Do I like it? Do I have the desire to keep it consistent? Because you and I both know you can't just do something for 1 week and make it. No, you literally have to commit. I'm going to do this consistently, content creation or engagement with this platform for at least 6 months to really get the traction. I think 6 months is a good rule of thumb. I mean, of course, you can get traction sooner, sometimes longer, but you have to stay committed. I mean, launching podcasts, it's not like you could just launch a podcast and next week say, oh, I didn't get the million followers or viewers, so I'm going to cancel the podcast. I mean, it's not about that. So a lot of time you just have to make sure you're committed. And I think for me, that's a big decision maker. Can I commit to this? And if so, great. If not, maybe it's the wrong timing. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to do the platform. Maybe just the timing's off. So I have to come back to this, 3 months from now and figure it out then. Or maybe it's just something not at all because it's really not going to, align with our brand and everything else we're doing.
I think the selfish component of it's not a bad thing because especially with content, if you're not into it, people are going to tell, and then it's not authentic. If you're having fun, people pick up on that because people can see a genuine smile. They can hear the excitement in your voice and see that sparkle in your eye, that whatever you're doing, you're enjoying, and that pulls them in even more. And if you're just going through the motions, it doesn't mean as much. So I think that making sure that you're committed to it, enjoying it first before even worrying about, well, what are my numbers? That makes sense. Because I think with anything, if you stick with it in consistency, you'll start to get some traction. And then you can determine, okay, the traction I've got after 6 months, I enjoy it, but the traction is just not really there. Then it's time to pivot. But I want to get what's your definition of consistency when it comes to creating content and doing all this? Is it a strict schedule of this on this frequency, or just that Brittney is going to be putting content out. You just don't know when, but it's going to be consistently coming out. How do you define consistency?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's not so rigid because it's just part of running the business. And I don't know. I also tend to run my business more creatively too. Like, yeah, I know at some point during the month, I need to create videos for this partner that I have. Okay, so let's kind of put it in the schedule and make sure it gets done. But if something happens that week and I need to be available for something else, and I pivot and reschedule. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of more like that with partner. And, a lot of my content now is with partners, and it's like on a day-to-day basis, we need you for these media interviews or this. So it's that's also exciting for me. I like it because it keeps it fun every day. It could be different, or I might be needed for something and I have to reschedule. But for the most part, like my own content, me and my social media manager work 30 days in advance. So she creates all the content. Obviously, we have content library. I've taught her now how to speak in the language. I still actually create a lot of the content in terms of just things to say or themes. And then she obviously makes it more engaging for social media. But it's a very dialogue conversation, Justin, because I think a big part of it is I've always created the content and I've always known I have to be engaged in the content. Otherwise it won't be authentic. And even though she's so good at it, I still need my voice in there. I approve everything. I edit everything. So nothing goes out without me, reviewing. So that helps a lot on our end. We plan in advance for Instagram lives if we're going to do that, or all the social media on Facebook, Instagram, which are our main ones, Twitter too. And then a lot of the other content, I just am available as needed, but also there's kind of a schedule to creation.
I think part of the answer to that depends on the advisor. For some people, they're very they need that rigid schedule. They need to know that every second Tuesday of the month, their podcast is going to drop. And there is a case to say, Benjamin Brandt was talking to the AGC and he talked about how building consistency, TV shows build themselves into your life. I didn't watch Friends growing up, but I knew it was on Thursday night. It's going to be there, and you kind of build yourself into their routine. So there is the benefit for things like that. So I think a podcast having a set schedule isn't necessarily a bad thing. That's what I'm doing with this. Every other Friday, except for this week, is the Advisor Tomorrow Live. And then Monday, the podcast comes out. That consistency is good to try to build that in. But I think there's other flexibility with the creativity. For me, I can't say I'm going to write a blog post every Wednesday because, we're running businesses, we have families, clients come in, and sometimes I can't force the creativity. I have to kind of have it in the moment, and I might not be able to write that week. So for me, when it comes to content, it's create a lot of it so people know it's going to come, but they don't really know when it's going to come. But you can see examples all over of everybody doing different ways. Like I'm more sporadic, but Nick Majuli is dropping a blog post every Thursday, I think. Morgan Housel's every one. Like there's certain people who do it every week, and then there's other people who just do it whenever. So I think it's got to be in line with you. But for me, consistency it's just there's stuff coming out regularly. There's not big gaps. To your point, you can't do a podcast for a week and then stop doing it and try to pick it back up 2 months later. You've got to stick with it.
I love that you said that. Yeah, because it is important to have consistency for your viewers. Like the podcast is a definitely commitment to consistency, right? And even like us with an email campaign at first Wednesday of every month, like it's going to happen no matter how I feel. But yeah, I think that kind of consistency with a schedule for your people, but then you figure out your work style with your own creation process and do it. But I love that you said it too, because yeah, we're busy and, like I know my creation process so well that certain days I'm like, oh, I could grind and sit here and force out some content, but really it doesn't matter. It's not going to work very well. I'll just like do what I need to do, get offline, come back tomorrow. It comes out in like 5 minutes, but I know that now because I know my own process so well and I trust it. So I'm never like, oh, I gotta write this blog, even though I have deadlines and things I have to meet. I mean, it's just, yeah, there's a creation discipline, but then there's also a creation trust. And I think that just comes from experience.
Which that was a perfect segue into my next question. Time. How do you have all time to do all of this stuff? Like that's a question I get a lot, and I'll share my answer after you. But so you have Financially Wise, you have your personal content that you're doing, you have brand work that you're doing, you have dance classes and living your life and hiking and all the fun stuff that you like do, meditation and yoga, all those things you do. How do you have time to fit this into your busy schedule?
Yeah, thanks. Well, you have like the family and kids. I've always been good at time management. It's just a skill. From early on, I would just remember I wanted to do a lot of things. So I just figured out if I schedule it in my calendar, I can do them all. And it's just part of me. So obviously I have Google Calendar and I have very healthy boundaries. Believe it or not, I have like I try to have like 2 off days during the week. So that actually helps me refuel and recharge. So when I do work, I'm super clear and focused and not bogged down. But that I had to develop and learn how to trust that process. Cause a lot of people be like, oh, I can't, I'm so busy, blah, 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 but it's like, you have to learn what you need and have those healthy boundaries, to make it happen. I also think meditation helps me so much because through meditation practice, I just have more clarity to see things more clearly. So even like my process, right? If I'm like, oh, I need to create this thing by Friday, but today I'm not really feeling it, I know I have clarity to say, no, put it aside and come back to it tomorrow or stuff like that. So a lot of time management, I think, is just having healthy boundaries, meditation to keep you clear and focused. And I have a really good work ethic. I mean, that's just how it is. There's often, look, life, there's days where I don't want to work. I don't want to do anything, but I have discipline. And that's always been part of my family. My father has great work ethic. So I think it's just part of my mentality I always say it's kind of like the athlete's mentality, like through dance or through sports, you learn no matter how you feel, you show up and do it. Of course, you take care of yourself and do what you need to do, but there's a discipline and having a discipline is actually it feels good. I think a lot of people get afraid with that word discipline because they think it's going to restrict things or, take away things, but actually having a discipline to say no or yes, but let me do XYZ first. It feels better. And you're just I find through that, like I get more energy because then I'm like, more powerful or more centered to just do the things that I need to do. Yes, Justin, I'll do that, but tomorrow, can I get it to you tomorrow or something like that? I want to
discipline. Discipline actually brings like openness, like rather than restrict you, it actually opens you up more. I'm not very good at that. I have a hard time saying no. I'm getting better at the no, but I have a hard time saying no. And part of the reason is saying yes has been so good to me my whole career. I think that a lot of the opportunities and a lot of things that have happened is because I've said yes, whether it was I said yes to the opportunity or I said yes to somebody who really needed the advice or the help, and the universe repaid me with positivity later on. So I'm afraid to say no because yes has always worked. But I'm learning that by saying yes to everything, then you can't give your best to everything. So sometimes saying no is actually better. I have a less polite response to that, about how do you have enough time? Like, I decided early on that the way I was going to grow my firm was doing good work, but then from a marketing standpoint was content. I have no choice but to find time to do this because it's the only way my business is going to grow. And it's not like I'm living the normal advisor life. Like, I always default to golf because so many advisors golf, but I don't golf. I don't go to do networking events. I don't do dinners. Like, this is all that I do. So if you were to take up the amount of time that someone's doing for seminars or they're doing for networking groups or whatever it might be to grow their business, there's nothing wrong with those. I'm not allocating hours there. I'm allocating hours to doing stuff like this, because for me, that's the way it's going to move my business. So I have to find the time for it. And what I've also learned is, back to your creativity process, the more you do this, the more efficient you become. You can get through things very quickly. And I enjoy it so much, it's also a hobby. So like in the evenings, I don't really watch a lot of TV. Like, my free time is spent creating or planning or catching up on things that I need to catch up on. But like, I don't have an exciting life. So it's, get home, family time, soccer practices, dinner, showers, baths, get the boys to bed, read to Silas. And then instead of watching something on Netflix and binging, I'm working on a podcast or working on an online course or something. Like, that's enjoyable to me, which is not the same for everybody, but that's how it works for me. But I just think if you're going to commit to doing this stuff, you have no option but to find the time, and it plants itself on your calendar, and other things that are less important get pushed aside.
And I would disagree. I think your life is very exciting because you even
Well,
your energy is exciting though, because you're doing things that you enjoy and you take away the things that you don't enjoy, like
right.
Netflix. Like, I'm the
Well,
same way.
I would agree. My life is exciting to me. I just think from somebody looking in that they think, oh, that's boring. All you do is work, find some time to work out, and be with your family. That's a great life. But like, it's not like we're not traveling a lot. Ange and I don't go downtown India a lot and do a bunch of these different things. Like, we're homebodies. We like being with our family, friends as well. But then that's really all we need, which allows me the time to do this stuff. And I also think people underestimate how much time it actually takes to do some of this stuff,
It's so
especially
true.
as you get comfortable. Like, doing a video takes nothing. Like, editing a video takes no time. Recording it takes no time. I actually did a video, like a YouTube video. It's like 5 minutes to record the video and edit. It's that quick. Like, it's not as much time as people think. And then also you can outsource as well. So I think that timing things becomes a little bit of an excuse to mask the true fear of putting themselves out there or not knowing how to do that. So that the answer to default is, well, I don't have enough time to do that. I think if you really want to do it, you find the time.
I 100% agree. Actually, that was one of the things that so used to bug me. People would be like, I don't have time. I think from a financial planner perspective, we hear this a lot as the number one excuse why people don't budget or plan, or I don't have time. And I would just think, okay, are we going to talk like, because really it's your choice how you use your time. So it's just, why don't you say it's just not that important to you? Because that's actually more true and real. And even just saying it's not that important to me, great, then don't do it. Like, it actually is more powerful to say that. Like, I'm choosing not to do that because it's not that important to me. Like, I'm choosing not to watch Netflix because it's not that important. I would rather use my time over here. And I think we all have that choice. And yeah, I tell people often, like, yeah, I live a full life. I don't even say I'm busy because I even hate that word. Like, people use it as some badge. Like, I'm so busy. I have so many things to do. It's like, are we competing over how busy we are or how much time we have or don't have? Because I'd rather just scrap the whole idea and say, are you enjoying your life? Do you have fun? Are you doing the things you want to do or not? Yeah, but I love everything you said, because I think it really is about figuring out what an exciting life looks like for you and just making it happen.
What about concern? Another question, again, this wasn't on our agenda, but just came to
Yeah.
me. What about the concern of, well, what do your clients think if they see you creating all this content and doing these videos and doing these partnerships deal, don't you think your clients wonder what you're doing and why you aren't watching their plans?
Yeah.
Has it ever been an issue for you?
No, it used to maybe once or twice come up into my radar, like, oh, maybe they're gonna judge me because I'm doing all this social media. But I'm just so don't. I try not to, like. Of course, I care what people think, but not really in a way. Like I was like, well, if they have an issue, then they're not really a good client for me because
Mhm.
if they can't see like the bigger thing that I'm doing to help people with their money, then so be it. But a lot of them actually really liked it, like, and now I think because I don't have that even question or doubt or insecurity, when I do bigger things, they're so excited, like they'll email and say that's so great, or they'll come back and refer more people later, um, and mention something in an email like, so great, we saw you on XYZ or read an article and you were in there. So I just didn't really let that bother me, but I know some people do think about that. But I would just say this is 2020. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Everybody works and then has a family and is on social media. So it's not like so weird if you do social media like it
Right.
was maybe 10 years ago as a professional. Like, get over it. Everybody's doing it. So they're not so judgmental. I mean, even my dentist, for crying out loud, sends me emails and does marketing.
Mhm.
So everybody's doing it.
I think it's something to be mindful of. And going back to one of my earlier comments was we have to be advisors first. I think if your clients are being taken care of, you're answering emails and phone calls promptly when they call, you're reviewing with them regularly, their needs are met. At the end of the day, we're selfish human beings. As long as you're taking care of me and I'm in good shape and my plan's in place, and I know if I have a question, Brittney's going to answer the phone or get back to me right away, then I don't care what you do with the off time. So I think if you're doing good work and your clients are being taken care of first and they know that, I think the concern about you creating content is a little bit less. The second thing is, I do think clients appreciate the fact that a lot of your content is meant to educate other people, spread financial literacy, and they're learning from it as well. This
Yeah.
content we create is good for marketing. It's also great for ongoing communication with your clients. So they're actually hearing from you and I probably more than most advisors communicate with their clients, because every week they're getting my weekend review email that has some of the content we created through the week and some other stuff just for my clients. So I I haven't had any issues. It's been something I've been mindful of, and it's been something I've been a little bit more mindful of as I create more content geared towards other advisors, because then that kind of takes
Yeah.
me away from financial planning. But I've been 100% transparent with my clients. There was a point in time where I decided that before I hired Thomas, RLS was going to freeze in the size. I was only going to take on referrals from clients, a handful a year, and that my future business growth was going to be working with other advisors. I sent that in an email with a video to my clients and said, "Hey, this is where things are going. Clients come first. This is my primary business. I need to grow business anyways. I can either grow it with more planning clients or I can grow it working with financial advisors. Neither one of those are going to impact you. And I've just chosen that future growth is going to be with advisors." Nobody had any issues with that. Nobody left. Nobody's complained. So I think that a combination of transparency, letting them know what you're doing and maybe why you're doing it, and then just making sure that they come first, most clients are going to be okay with that. If they see you doing all this fun stuff and you're not returning the calls and their
Yeah,
plans falling off, then that's when it becomes problematic, I think.
for sure. And it's so funny because I wouldn't even, I'm glad you said it because I don't even think that way. Because I just think, yeah, no service should suffer if you're doing something over here. You should
Mhm.
have what you need in place to take care of the clients in this capacity to make sure they're being serviced, and then you have the ability to go over here and launch something new. But if, yeah, no one should be suffering, that would be not good business.
And that goes back to discipline too, building out your calendar. So like the beginning of every day starts out with RLS. Like everything client first starts out my day to make sure there's anything that needs to be addressed during the day, that comes first. And then there's time slotted for the AGC. So I'm working on that. Then there's time slotted for content. And then the majority of my day is still RLS wealth, but I've got it time blocked that there's times where I work on the other things. So I know that I'll get to the clients. And I have to give my buddy Ashby Daniels all the credit for talking about blocking out in 2-hour chunks and you only do what's in there. But that's really worked out for me a lot. And I just start and end every day with the firm first. And then I fill in the smaller gaps with the other stuff. And it ends up building out enough time.
That's great. Yeah, you're so thoughtful. And even how you made the video for your clients. I mean, who can argue with that?
Right. Right. Well, and sometimes I share too much, but that's just me. And I just want them, because I don't direct any of the advisor focused content to my clients, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't show up in social media, or they might not find it. And I don't want them to come across it having no idea that I'm doing this and wonder what's this second life that he's living. I told them about it. So when they see it, they're like, oh, he told us about that. Everything's good with me. Go do you. So
Yeah.
I think that that's a good way to go about it. As we kind of come closer to the end, so obviously personal branding, leveraging you, your expertise, your personality has been a big asset for you and your firm. But if you had to pick like the single most impactful benefit of building your presence and your brand, what would it be? Like, what's the biggest thing that's helped you do?
What's the biggest thing that helped me build my brand?
What's the biggest thing that your brand has helped you do from a business perspective?
Oh, from a
Having
business.
it. Like if you didn't have this presence, you wouldn't have whatever it is this biggest thing is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I could say a few things. If I didn't have this brand, I wouldn't have had all the financial planning clients, that I've had throughout the years, and have this funnel that keeps giving me financial planning clients. I actually transitioned this year, so I have a partner now who helps manage all the clients, but the funnel is still alive. So I have all these people who still come to the brand because of all this content I've created and ask for advice. So that, I would say, the financial planning arm of the company wouldn't exist. And then very obvious is all the speaking and partnerships that I have wouldn't exist if I didn't have a brand and really go in 8 years ago with this vision to create something bigger than just financial planning practice or clients. And like the things that I get to do now, I just think, I saw the payoffs on some of these things years ago, but I think even as you grow and develop as a business owner and entrepreneur, you have these moments where you're like, oh, okay, yeah, all those years, now it's really showing its benefits to me. And I think 2020 has been one of those years because, one, I was always virtual, so that didn't faze me. Work from home, I had all this set up. I know how to do videos, run a practice. Being a brand that teaches about financial education, because we now everybody wants that, needs that. Companies are putting dollars behind it more than ever before. And just being this thought leader who's done authentic work since day one. It's like you just see like all these years of hard work, and when times of bigger chaos or uncertainty happens, you can kind of rise to the top and feel good and happy because you've done the work along the way. So I would just say so many things have come from the brand and will continue to come from the brand.
Along with an appearance in this book.
Yay.
So this is one of the questions I wanted to ask, or I wanted to bring this up. So if you're listening, I just held up Gary Vaynerchuk's Crushing It book. And in it, he highlights a variety of people who were crushing it, in his words, using social media and branding. And I think he has you in the Facebook chapter, but I wanted to read one of your quotes, and I alluded to it because you said it already, but in it you say, I actually don't even care what others are doing in the industry. I never even really look. I just work on my company, my brand. Unless I go to speak at a conference, I really don't connect with a lot of financial advisors. I'm glad you've changed that. And I did that strategically because when I first started the company, there was so much outside noise. It's draining. It works a lot better because I'm not constantly comparing myself or competing. I need to just do me. And I love that last line because earlier this year on Twitter, there was a debate or a conversation I got into about like whether or not content works or not. And ultimately I was just like, you do you. Like whatever works for you is what you need to do. And that's the best way to grow. So I love that. And the other part of that I liked was that you're not constantly comparing yourself because it's easy to do. So I would encourage people, look to others, like look to the Brittneys and look to the Douglas Bonapartes and people who are doing it for inspiration and motivation, but don't compare yourselves to what it is that they're doing. Like pull ideas from them and then go do it your own way, but don't get caught up with, the results that they're having compared to you, because you have a different goal than what other people might have. And the biggest compliment in this, now that your quote's over, but this comes from Gary. So the very next line says, though I don't know Brittney, all of the contributors in this book, she's the one that means the most to me. That's awesome. That's awesome. And he goes on, and the reason is, we as financial advisors have a huge excuse of why not to do this. Compliance, regulations, like we could very easily say, no, we're not going to do it. But that's what Gary really respected about Brittney, was that she didn't let that hold her back. And anything that, like, kind of like the way I viewed myself is like, you wanted to prove all that wrong, that you can do it, and you're going to kind of defy them. So I thought that was pretty cool. I wanted to put that up. How was that experience being a part of that book?
That was so fun. That was a few years ago. As his team emailed me, this is the power of content, putting a brand. By the way, I should have said that too. I've never pitched myself. I mean, very rarely do I pitch myself. All the deals, all these opportunities have been inbound, which is the power of creating a consistent brand and content for a long time, it never ends. It was fun. It was a great thing to do. I felt like so excited, Gary V, but of course it's his whole posse who you're working with, not necessarily Gary. But I think that was a great quote, and just to be listed. And I love that. I'm glad you read that, because I forgot that he said that about me too, because it is accurate. We as financial advisors know the extra hurdles we have to go through to create content that maybe other professions really don't ever have. And I think just having that kind of like quote from him was like a nice little validation, even though you try not to go for validations in life. But it was nice just to have somebody who obviously gets it say, yeah, it's hard and you've done it. So kudos to you,
That's awesome. All right. So I'm going to bring my book with me next time I go to LA. And I'm going to have you sign that chapter that you're in.
Well, we should get Gary, not me, but yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, it's not for the same reasons. I have a call with somebody from Gary V's team this afternoon. I know they're going to try to sell me their services, but I figured that they reached out. I'm going to at least have that call and talk to them just for the experience. Pretty cool. All right. So final question before I let you get back to your day. The essence of branding is something that you see, believe, or feel through your own unique lens. You view something in our profession that everybody else is missing out on. So what's the thing that you do differently, or you see differently, that sets you apart from our peers?
Yeah, I think my unique difference is that I just come at it from maybe a more relatable, or like, I want to say like feminine approach to money. I mean, I've always been more naturally empathetic and compassionate when I'm working with others. And I think that relatability that I push through to my content has been one of the biggest benefits. And I think we see this vulnerability in a lot of other sectors or bloggers or influencers. I mean, I'm not like that level, but I think I share enough where I'm personally comfortable and I just relate human to human, like, and I know that. I mean, I've never been one to judge people or rank people based on race or income or wealth status or power. I just think, hey, we're all people. So let's talk about this one thing together that affects us all. And we all have different journeys with it. So I just try to like level the way that I speak to people. And I think it really actually benefits people on like the emotional, holistic, spiritual side of money, because you and I both know you can have all the money you ever need. It's not going to bring happiness. That's not it. Wealth is a bigger thing than just money in your bank. Yes, we need money, of course. I love money. I think everybody could, choose how much money they want in life, and with the right work, they'll get it. But for me, it's like, how do we help people with the realities? Because a lot of people are stressed, overwhelmed, anxious with money, have money and still worry about it constantly. So I like to always speak on this human to human level and be more comprehensive or holistic the way I talk about it.
Well, if you're listening or watching and you still wonder if having a personal brand can help your advisory firm grow, you need to look no further than Brittney, because she's done it. She's proven it. And she's laid the blueprint for many of us who have followed her way. Brittney, if people want to start following you, if they're not already following you, like I think that's hard to believe, but if they're not, where can they follow you, or you want to direct them to on social media and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, come over to Instagram at Brittney Castro. That's usually the number one. Even direct message me, but we push most of our content there, so that would be great.
All right. I'll link to that on the blog post, which you can find at justincastelli.io/blog. Brittney, thank you for joining us and sharing your wisdom with us. And congratulations on all the success. And it'd be fun to see what the next thing is that you're trying and watch you keep on trying all these new ways of communicating. But appreciate it. And everybody, thanks for listening and tuning in. And we'll see you all in the next episode.
Thanks, Justin. You're
Thanks,
great.
Brittney. Bye.
Bye.